This is not the end. Strategies to get through the worst chapters of your life is a book written by Emmy-Award winning television news anchor Nina Sossamon. I sit down one-on-one with the news anchor, public speaker, and corporate executive for the special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and download my free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Nina Sossamon, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you greatly. Well, I keep telling everybody every time I get a chance, you are the best television news anchor probably in this city's history in my mind.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
When we met, you were just a kid.
That's right.
You were a kid walking across that bridge. You were, what, 12, 15, something like that. Yeah.
I enjoyed coming over there. I got kicked out one time.
Oh, you did? I didn't kick you out.
No. The news director at that point, he kicked me out when he saw me coming for Thanksgiving dinner.
He was this curious kid who would just come show up in the newsroom.
That's right, yeah. And it was really good then.
But thank you for the compliment.
Oh, anytime. Obviously, you are an author. You are a well-renowned public speaker. You're a former news anchor. You obviously are a USA gymnast, a VP of Benefit Focus. Who else is Nina Sossamon these days?
It's a lot, isn't it?
I know.
It is a lot. I had to write some things down recently, and I said, I'm the result of the plot twists in my life. So I've done a lot of things.
Yes.
And obviously, just from what you said, people really focus on the big wins, to be a news anchor and to be a vice president or to be on the U.S. gymnastics team. But along with that, I've also had some, stumbling blocks that haven't been so fun to talk about. And so part of who I am is the person that learned from all of those experiences, the good and the bad.
Good and the bad.
Yeah.
You have this quote here on your Twitter page. It says this: "What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us." What lies within you now?
A real burning desire to make a difference. And that's an Emerson quote. This is actually what I wear around my neck, too. Wow. I didn't know you were going to say that. It's the same charm I wear around my neck. It's my favorite quote.
Right.
And I do have a real burning desire to make a difference. I think when you get to a certain point in life and the kids are up and grown and off to college and I've had such life experience, I have found myself in recent years being the person that people come to when they need to get through something difficult. So whether it's they get fired or they get divorced or something happens in their life, I sort of became this go-to person for so many of friends and family. And then I realized I'm actually really good at that, and I've actually had success helping people, and I wanted to do that in a broader way. So who I am now, that burning desire, is just trying to use the life experience I have and the professional experience I have to make a difference.
Make a difference.
Yeah.
I want to go to June 1st because you posted this on your office page on Facebook. You said this quote: "I'm excited to share that I have started a new chapter in my life. I'm on a mission to serve people struggling through their tough life events. With today's social media, so many people are afraid that they will be defined by one event in their life." What was that one event that defined you?
Well, there were several. And actually in my new book, I go through those 5 big defining moments that were not the wins. Really, the defining moments in my life were some of the really low moments. So you talk about being a member of the U.S. gymnastics team, but I didn't make the Olympics that year. I was on the team, but the year that the Olympics came around, I didn't make the team. I was in an international gymnast that didn't make the team. That was a very defining moment. What do you do after that? I was a collegiate gymnast, an NCAA gymnast at LSU. And great experience there, but then I blew out my knee. And so I had a career-ending injury there, and once again had to figure out who I was, because who was I without gymnastics? Right. And then I was an Emmy-Award winning news anchor, and then I was let go at Channel 2 during a budget cut, which at the time was devastating, and then had to figure that out again. And then I worked my way back up and won an Emmy and was Charleston's favorite news anchor. Thank you to everybody who always voted for me all those years. That was really an honor for me. But then the accident with Sam, and that was such a horrific time in my life and a very low moment, but then how do you build yourself back up? So a lot of my defining moments, and when you find out who you really are the really tough spots. And so those are my pivotal moments, more so than the making the U.S. team or getting chosen to go to LSU or winning an Emmy. I mean, the really highs and the really lows are what you hear about, and then the in between is what life is, and it's how you've dealt with those, which is like news. Because in news, you talk about the really great things going on in people's lives and the really horrible things, and then the everyday stuff nobody ever hears about. So life goes on in between all of that, and who you become is what you do with those experiences, I think.
Let me take you back to 2005. I was working as a production assistant at Channel 2 when that accident with Sam happened. How did you build yourself after that?
It was a tough one. The community was very supportive. Dean and Caroline were so fabulous and supportive. The story of Sam's survival, there were prayer vigils, and the doctors were amazing. And it was a story of miracles and heroes. And so when Dean and I went back on the air together for a year, I had a great therapist, and then I had a great friend, and he and Caroline, and we all picked each other up along with this community and helped each other heal through that. So it was hard. And the first time I talk about it is in the book, because there were some very dark times where I was at my wit's end. Thankfully, I was married to a great guy who talked me off a ledge a few times, but I had very dark thoughts, and it was difficult to figure out how can I be the woman who was Charleston's favorite news anchor and was this world-class gymnast, and the person who ran over this child. I mean, to put those two things together in someone's head is horrific, and it's very difficult to do. So when I wrote this book, it was an opportunity for me to share actually how you do that with an audience, because this book may not be for everybody, but it's written for people who are going through really difficult times, to tell them, how do you do that? How do you get, what's going on in your head, to be a little kinder to yourself? How do you create a script to step out into the world again? Because people would say, how are you? And I wouldn't even know an answer to that. I mean, you can't say good, because then people are like, oh, she's not dealing with it. You can't say horrible, because then they'll say, oh, she's not dealing with it. There was no good answer. So how you do that is you work on your language. You find a good support team. You look at the setting around you, what's helping and what's hurting. And you are very careful about the language that you talk to yourself and the way you talk out loud, because that becomes your story down the road. And I unpack that in the book, and it's the first time I've ever really organized my thoughts on how I did that, because so many people have asked, how do you go from this to success and a new career and a new arena? And in the book, I jump from the accident to 7 years later, I'm standing in New York, and we're ringing the bell on NASDAQ and going public. And how does that happen? How do you reinvent and create a whole new career? And a lot of that has to do with getting very quiet with yourself and figuring out, where you want to go, and the many challenges that you've had, using what you've learned. I call it building up your strength, kind of like my superpowers, building up that strength. So at a time when everything was very difficult in that career, as I moved into this new career, I was the go-to person when everybody else was crumbling, because I didn't crumble. I'd already been through really hard things. So this wasn't going to crush me. I would just keep moving forward. And I could, at a time when other people were really having a difficult time, I could go, hey, we got this. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to move forward. We're going to make this happen. So I used that coping skills and that strength that I had built through that challenge to really have greater success in the future. And I try to share with other people how to do that, because when you're in the middle of it, you feel like that's never going to happen. You feel like it's never going to be, you can't be happy again. You can't go forward. So I really try to, in this book, share how you get there, because it's more than you could do in a quick interview, but it really is it's a journey. And it's, we all are, very much on new paths since that happened. And we all feel like we're on really good paths. So, yeah.
How could you write that script now?
Well, it was one of those things. My father passed last year. He had Alzheimer's. And there's a lot of things left unsaid, as his health declined. And I had these moments where I thought, what do I want to not leave unsaid? What should I be sharing that I don't? What if something happened? What needs to be out there? And the stories of how you create success was a big part of that. And so I went and did some thinking about how I was going to unpack that. And I honestly started out writing a book about working women. That's what I thought I was going to write about. I knew I wanted to write something. And so it was going to be about being a working woman and raising kids, and don't beat yourself up about, when you're trying to work and, be a professional woman and a mom too. But then it morphed into this through my writing team. And it really became an opportunity. Sam's going into Wando High School now. Right. He's going to be in high school. Sure. So he's had great, health and success, and it's a really amazing young man. And my kids are off in college, sure. And it just became a moment where I thought this was the time. There was not one aha moment, but it morphed into this new journey for me, which I'm so thankful for.
This is not the end. Strategies to get you to the worst chapters of your life. When did you know that this was the time for that?
Well, during the writing process, I worked with a group out of Washington, D.C. called Difference Press, right. And they are spectacular, and they really pushed me to really write about the hard stuff. It's much more meaningful, and you make a bigger difference in the world if you can really tap into the tough stuff and share it. And so they encouraged me to get there. So I knew it was time when they looked at me and said, okay, you're going to do this. This is what you're going to write about. It's not going to be that book. It's going to be this book. And we're going to be right here with you to help you do it. And so it became a labor of love after that. And it's written for you. I talk about you through the whole thing. Sure. And I wrote it like a love letter to someone who I was helping through, just like if you had something going on and you came over to my house, or one of my kids, I always say if my kids come home from college with one of their friends and we sit on the end of the dock and try to figure out, help them through something. It's the same stories I would tell you, the books I've read and the way that I think. And it's a little Stoic philosophy. It's a little bit of Mammon. It's a little, it's all of it. I wrote it as a mentor. I'm not an expert in psychiatry or psychology, but certainly I've had plenty of, therapy and help and read a ton to try to get myself to a better place.
Nina Sossamon, the Emmy-Award news anchor, probably in the Southeast in some people's minds. Yeah. What got you from that to saying, hey, I want to be an author?
It was a real journey. News is difficult.
Sure.
You're huffing and out here all the time. It never stops. It's always changing. There's always a story.
Sure.
So I did know that as my children got older, that I wanted to do something where I could be home more with the kids, because 2 to midnight, I was missing all the baseball games, all the ballet. I was missing it all. So I did know I wanted to make that change. I had an opportunity when I went to work with Benefit Focus to learn a lot from Sean Jenkins. His passion and his energy as he grew that company was contagious. And he would always instill in all of us on his leadership team that we are creating an experience, whether creating an experience to use the software or creating an experience for an event. Can people find the button that they need, or can people find the information that they need, or when they walk into a room, what's the lighting, what's the song that's on? There's someone there to greet them and hand them a glass of water. Sure. So I got down this journey and wanted to create this experience. So I'm not sure I answered your question exactly, but it became this opportunity through working with Benefit Focus and all I learned there as a software executive and all the young people that I mentored and the management that I did and the things that I learned over 12 years with them. I know. To go, I'm ready to step aside and step away from there. So I'm part-time there now.
Oh, okay.
And I'm just doing some special project work. But I was ready to step away from there and do something that was just mine. And this is my first thing I've done that's just mine. So this new speaking career and this new opportunity to write books, and it's a 2-book deal. So the second book will come out next year. And so I'm excited about that. And still not sure exactly what it's going to be yet, but we are working with a lot of different things. And
TV news, maybe?
Well, it's however you can make a difference. So you write this book through this process, and then something in that book resonates with your audience.
Sure.
And then you tap into that and you go deeper, and that becomes your second book. So the book's really about making a difference on the planet. I didn't write the book to make money. I didn't write the book to be famous.
Right.
I truly think that if someone is going through something and they are so worried that this horrible event in their life is going to define them, whether it is a divorce or a firing or a traumatic accident, they can pick up this book and even if they just jump to chapter 6 and go, oh, how do I put this in perspective? Or jump to chapter 9 and go, how do I create a script to get me past, to protect myself in public? There's something they can take a nugget from it. You don't have to read it all beginning to end. I wanted to put something out there that people could get and make, and use in a real useful way. In a meaningful way.
Meaningful way. You talk about that firing Channel 2. Channel 2.
I know.
That was home for you.
It was my place, yeah. So, this is the first time I've talked about that, too. So, I won Charleston's favorite news anchor for the 7th year on a Thursday. Right. And Rob Fowler and I were walking down to go cut the news briefs at 3 o'clock one day. And the GM called me in and said, we are releasing you from your contract without clause. And I said, have I done something? And he said, no, we are releasing you from your contract without clause. And I said, when? And they said, the little HR lady walked in, and it was immediate, and they walked me right out. And I was heartbroken. But, now that I've been in corporate America for a long time, that's how budget cuts work. And that was the same time Warren Pepper was no longer at Channel 5. It was just we all made too much money for this size market at the time. Yeah. And that was when the internet was just coming on board. So remember, it was all TV dollars and all those car commercials. Sure. Now they had other places to advertise. Sure. The whole industry changed right then. So, some of us got caught up in it, and it was, just drew a line, and they hired somebody that didn't have children to go home to at night and would not, ask for as much money. Think about it. I mean, it's a great job to do news. They'll always find someone who will do it for a little less. So it was heartbreaking, but I totally understand it now, and it gave me the opportunity to really think about, did I love that career? And I did. Yeah. And then I went over to 4, and I enjoyed so much working over there. Dean's, he's charming on TV. He's so much fun to work with. We had a really great few years there.
I worked there temporarily with you all.
That's right.
I screwed up a whole lot. Jesus. Well, I'll digress. But it was fun working with a legend like you, professional like you. So it was fun.
It was a really good time. It was a good time to be in news. It was very different. People still tuned in at night. They couldn't just pull it out of their pocket and see what. There was no iPhone.
No, not in 2005.
We had the bag phone still. I guess we had Blackberries. Maybe.
Yeah, probably.
That was it.
I
think it might have been pre-Blackberries, but there was very little internet even. I mean, it was all changing and all exciting. Yeah. And still a very fun time to be in that business. And, it was just 3 shows a day. Right. And it wasn't, you didn't have to post to the internet. You didn't have to do Twitter or Facebook. None of that was there.
No, not in 2005. Yeah. That was really.
And people tuned in at night to see what was going on, and you had a different relationship with your audience, because I still see people and they said, you were just at our dinner table every night. You're like part of the family, which I love. I love that I have so many good friends out in the community.
You talk about that relationship. Why did people trust you for over 20 years combined with channels 2 and 4?
I don't know. I think maybe because I was just me. I went to journalism school back when it was fair, balanced, and accurate. Right. And so I took that very seriously.
I still do today.
Good. I'm so glad someone does.
And
that's why we all love you. Yes, that's why we all love you. So it was fair, balanced, and accurate. And I learned early on in my career, I had great people ahead of me, Leslie Lyles and Dan Ashley, and the people that I took the helm from. I learned very quickly that the stories were never about me. Right. It was always about what was happening in our community. It was really a gift to the viewers. You had to sit there every night and remind yourself that if it was a horrible story, I would try, if I have to be the messenger of a horrible story, I would be very conscious of the language that I use and the way in which I said it, so that people could consume that in a way that didn't ruin their evening.
Right.
And you don't have that anymore. I mean, everything is just out there now. So I think that's why, and I did a lot in the community and ribbon cuttings and schools and read it all every year on, is it March? I think it is Theodore Geisel's birthday. And I'd go reading Green Eggs and Hams and do the Dr. Seuss readings in the libraries. I just loved being a part of this community. And I think this community appreciated the honesty. And then I had my babies. I got big on the air. So big. My
I remember those days.
I don't know how they even framed that shot. I was so big. And everybody, watched, and they became a part of.
Sure.
They were invested in whether or not, it was a boy or girl. I didn't know with either one. So it was just a fun time to be in. I think the community enjoyed it as much as I did. And I took it as a responsibility. I always felt very much a responsibility to the viewers to be honest and to double check things. I got, I would call Chief Greenberg if I wasn't sure about a story before I would say it, or I'd call Sheriff Cannon. And I got to know those guys and would pick up the phone and make sure that whatever I was about to say was true. And I think that the community appreciated that as well.
I got to go back because I went over to the Postal Service archives.
Wow, look at you. You wouldn't believe the stuff you found here. Oh my gosh, what year is this?
1994. And Frank Wooten, who retired from the Postal Courier a couple of years ago, says this: Sossamon up and rolling. Evans, anticipating Leslie Lyle's exit, earlier this year moved crime reporter Nina Sossamon into the co-anchor slot alongside Dan Ashley. Bill Evans, who was the general manager at the time at Channel 2, says, WCVD surveys called the choice a winner. The viewers concurred, obviously. Following a tough act, Sossamon has responded well, displaying an assertive on-air presence.
Oh my gosh, and I was such a kid. I was just faking it. Yeah, I was just, 27?
No,
yeah, I was very young.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I was 27 or 28. I was very, and I just sat there, and Dan helped boost me up each night and made sure I was confident. And every night after the newscast, we would go watch the newscast. Dan and I would sit in Edit Bay, and we would critique ourselves. And he would help me get better. And that I had to get better quickly because I was sitting next to a pro.
Right.
We're still friends.
Yes.
I see him when I was at Benefit Focus. I would work out in San Francisco. We had an office on Green Street, which was only 2 streets over from where the TV station is.
KGO.
Yeah, so I'd go over to KGO and have coffee with him. He is doing great. I still keep up with him and Russ McCaskey.
Right.
And
Bo Williams is in Tennessee.
Oh, Bo Williams, yeah. And Joey Trahan.
Right. He's in Texas? Yeah, he's in Texas, Dallas. Yeah. And of course, Rob is still here.
Of course. And we're still friends,
yes.
Especially with my husband. We're all, the weather world here.
Yes.
It's very tight. It's very tight. Yeah.
You talk about your husband, Ben Pope. Certified meteorologist, I believe, still. He's an attorney now. But before then, we knew him as a morning meteorologist. They didn't have news shows back then.
Right.
Morning meteorologist at Channel 2.
Right.
What got him from being a morning meteorologist or attorney to now saying, hey, last year, I want to run for politics and change something?
Well, I think we're both at that point in our lives where we're ready to give back. When our kids got up and grew up and went off to college, so they all are off in college now, and they're great humans and doing their own thing. We had a lot of long talks and said, what do we do now? How do we, what do we want this next chapter of our lives to be? And we both want to give back in our own way. And that's the way in which he wants to give back. Being an attorney, running for office, making a difference in our community in that way. And I support him in the political arena, but that's not where I want to make a difference. So mine is in the books and in the speaking. And so we both are on this next chapter supporting each other, but it's our way of, and it's what we wanted to do with our lives. We wanted to keep growing and learning, but we really wanted to give back because we've been given so much. We feel very blessed. And this community's been so great to us. Yeah. And I came here in 92. Right. I remember driving into town. I had my U-Haul. I was a U-Haul, and I had a black lab, and there was an old bench seat in the U-Haul. And I came across the bridges. I was pulling my Jeep behind me on the little car carrier. And I came across those bridges, and the Ashley Bridge, and it said Musk something. And I thought, what's Musk? Which is MUSC.
Right.
I didn't know that. And I remember thinking, Musk, what is Musk? Which is hilarious now. But then I came over, remember the old Grace and the the Pyramid Bridge, and it was the reversible lane, and I drove into Mount Pleasant and went to the old Quintin hut. That was just it was a much smaller town back then. Sure. But I love this community, and I've watched it grow, and I've grown with it. Right. And so we both feel like it's given us so much, and we are excited about giving back.
Giving back.
Yeah.
Charleston obviously has changed since I've been born here in 1984 to now. Obviously, you came here in 92. If you were in television today, how would you report on the change of Charleston?
Oh, wow.
By being fair, balanced, non-opinionated.
It's very difficult. It's a challenge these days because there are so many forces that are influencing the media and what is said from your advertisers and from your overarching ownership of the TV stations. So I think I'd have a real challenge because I I have strong opinions, and I do have a fierce need to be fair, balanced, and accurate because it was ingrained to me early on, and that fairness piece is really, really important to me. I think we still have a long way to go in this town to get to some real fairness, not with journalism, but just in general. We have a lot to do to create more equality in the Charleston area for everyone in the outlying regions and throughout the Low Country. So, it would be a challenge now, but I would be fair, balanced, and accurate. Probably get fired. I don't think I'll be jumping back in anytime soon.
Well, a lot of them can get away with it on social media, but I'll digress.
Right.
How did you and Ben Pogue, what do you guys have in common? And what did you have in common then?
Oh my gosh, that's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot that we have in common. This fairness piece is certainly part of it. We both parent very similarly. We both are passionate about learning and learning from, what's in the books and academia, but learning from life and learning as we grow and learning from our mistakes. We became very close through divorces and who's your therapist and how are you raising your kids and how are your children doing. That was a big part of how we got to know each other better. And I truly feel like the main thing we have in common is we believe in the support. Our relationship's a team. Right. We very look at it as teamwork, and we are really about supporting each other and making each other's not just dreams come true. I mean, we want to challenge each other, but we want to help each other become the best version of ourselves. And that may be, And he wrote a song, and he asked me to marry him with his guitar, and I'm a sucker. No, Ben is very talented in many ways, and very charming, and it was not hard to fall in love with him. But we have a lot in common when it comes to how we look at the world and how we want to parent and the things we want to get out of life. Very similar.
Very similar.
Yeah.
I talked earlier about Charleston. You've covered so many big news stories here in this town.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The closing of the old naval base to 9/11, Hurricane Floyd, I was talking about a second ago.
Right.
Which news story defines you as a journalist?
Oh wow. I don't know if there's. I flew through Hurricane Andrew on a tracking plane. That was just a cool experience. I rode elephants down 26 when the circus would come to town. Yeah. Defining moments for me in television, I think hurricane coverage and being that voice of calm, and it's a really big responsibility. I think that was a defining moment. All of those coverages, all of that time covering storms as they threatened our community. But I think 9/11 probably was the most defining for me. And we weren't even on the air that much, but because the national took over. Right. But when people were looking for people who they knew and wanted to know our level of fear and our level of concern. And so, we lived in the newsroom. We slept in the newsroom. It became all encompassing and holding it together for the community. And Chaplain Dewey went up to, and so talking with Rob while he was up there and having this sense of calm and being someone that people could tune into locally that they knew a little better than the national folks. I felt like that was really an important time for me in television to be that calm in a global emergency. So it changed me. It changed me. We were on the air probably 4 days straight before I came home. Right. And then the night I got home was the night they found the children in the nursery they realized that they had not gotten out. And I remember a little tiny TV on the kitchen counter, and it was dark, and my children were sleeping. I got in, and I poured myself a glass of wine, and I, for the moment, finally let myself feel it all. And I just sat there and cried for hours, and they kept doing the story of the children, and I remember that evening so vividly. And I think I woke up the next day a different person. And I think that changed all of us. But I was very proud of the way in which we held it together, and we were hopefully very reassuring to the audience at the time.
At the time.
Yeah.
You talk about change. Let me go back to your book, This Is Not the End. How has this book changed you?
Oh my goodness. Well, it's still doing it. I've still got a lot of work to do. So the book is out on ebook, and the audiobook's coming out, and the print version, which I just got picked up by, it was a Difference Press did it, but Morgan James out of New York picked it up. So the print version will be a little bit different.
Sure.
They don't allow any cursing. Morgan James doesn't. So I had to go make some edits because there are moments in it. I don't curse throughout. It's not one of those type of books, but there are moments in it where I recall things that happen, and there's some choice language. So I'm working with them on this next version. So I'm still in the process of how this book is changing me. It was a lot of very quiet moments and letting this all come out on paper that certainly changed me. They call it your inner author when you start writing a book. And I had I never knew how it was all going to work, but what I found is my inner author liked to write at about 4 a.m. And I'm not a morning person. So I would go to sleep at night, and then I'd wake up, and all of these thoughts would be in my head. And so a lot of this book was written at 4 in the morning, and I would write for a few hours, and it would all just kind of tumble out of me. And then I would go back to sleep, and I would wake up and read it and go, wow, that's really good. So the book changed me in a way in which I really got in touch with a piece of me that I hadn't allowed myself to really tap into. You know, I left television and went into a support role. I was finished being in the limelight. I really wanted to take a back seat and be a support. And so I was a support position with Benefit Focus all these years. And I was supporting my children and supporting them through law school and supporting my parents. So I was happy in a support position. This book has allowed me, and I kept myself busy with all of that because that's what you do. This book really forced me to sit quietly with myself and think about things in new ways, which has been really healing. So I think how this book has changed me is it's made me smarter, and it has made me so appreciative of just the gifts in my life and this new whole world that I'm learning about. I mean, I wasn't certain what my next chapter was going to be like. I knew I was going to do something. But having the opportunity to write books and be an author, I just still don't feel like I'm an author. It's really new to me. And then to do the speaking gigs, and the group I'm working with out of Detroit on the speaking is fascinating, and they're so smart. And I launched that in November. So I'll be out there and sharing the story in a different way.
That's amazing.
So it's changed me in a lot of ways.
Changed you in a lot of ways. But let me reread the title again. This is not the end. If I were to look through the book right now, which one of those chapters would you point to and say, hey, that's me?
Chapter 6. So chapter 2 is the only one that's really about me. That's where you hear my story. And chapter 6, though, is putting whatever is happening to you. I call it your this. Whatever this is that you're dealing with, is putting it in perspective. So thinking through how it fits into the story of your life. And this is the transformation I create in the room as I do my new speaking, my new keynote that I'm working on. For you, and here's how I'll take you through it. So in the book of your life, think about what that book looks like, Quintin. Your own book. You know, how big is that book? What color is it? Is it a heavy volume? Is it a children's book? What does the story of your life look like? And then what color is the cover? And now open that book to where you are today. Where are you in the book of your life, the story of Quintin? And I do this in chapter 6. Open your book and go, where are you? And then you can kind of timeline out what's happened. But what I love about this is all those pages ahead are empty. So you can put whatever you want there. I could sell my house and get an RV and ride around the country and sell pottery out of a van. I don't know. I could do something crazy tomorrow if I wanted to. I mean, my whole book could change. But I love the thought of the blank pages ahead. I love the thought of where are you in the story of your life, and what do those blank pages ahead look like. So it's fascinating to me to be able to put that out into the world and help other people think of their journey that way as well.
If my memory serves me correct, life started for you in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, well, I was actually born in Key West. I'm a true conch, which not many people are. But yeah, I lived in Jacksonville. I was a Navy brat, so I lived all over. But I was down in Jacksonville for years, and then through gymnastics, I ended up living in D.C., and then I went to LSU, and so I've lived all over. But yeah, there's Jacksonville's still near and dear to my heart, obviously, because some of my childhood was there. Elementary school.
Ooh, can't wait to take a day trip there soon. This is not the end. What was the beginning for you?
Gosh, the beginning of life or the beginning of this book. I think through this book, you'll see the beginning is your story. From the day you're born, you're learning. You're learning to walk. You're learning what works for you and what doesn't.
Right.
I grew up on Navy bases, so and all over. I mean, up in New Jersey and down in Florida. And when I grew up, the world was very different, and it was the 70s. It was Pete, Paul, and Mary. It was just. I think that the beginning for me, if you want to say the beginning, it's the very beginning, and then all of the collection of the learnings through my life, just like all of your collections of learning, become your story. And I think there's a little bit of that Navy brat in me and a little bit of that very competitive athlete in me. And there's a lot of the really empathetic news anchor in me, because you see people at these tough moments and you learn that empathy. It's just, it grows in you as you go through more and more horrible events with people, and that's what news is. It's hard on your soul, but it also grows you into a really great human because you do see people in a new way. I
was eavesdropping on your conversation with one of my Facebook friends, and
oh my gosh,
you basically said, "Hey, news business was tough for you." How tough was it for you, an Emmy-Award winning anchor?
It's tough. It's tough on the time. It consumes you, so you're there 2 to midnight every day. And I had young children, and they get up early no matter what. So it doesn't matter if I get home midnight or not. So it was the hours that were difficult for me. And then every weekend it was a Christmas parade or a ribbon cutting.
That's right.
And I started a nonprofit, and I had all of my charity work that I was doing and all of the boards that I was on. And I always felt such a sense of responsibility to this community. I had a hard time saying no. We all do that young in our careers. We have to learn how to say no. So I really... it was tough because I made it tough on myself. I wanted to be good, and I wanted to be better every day, and I wanted to do what I could for the community, and I wanted to be a good mom, and I wanted to sleep. So that was what was tough. It was just a lot. And it never stops. There's always a new story.
Oh, yes.
And I so admire the people who've stuck with it, because it's harder for them than it was for me, because now they have to do it online and through the social media. It's a really demanding role. And they have a huge responsibility. And I think our local folks do a fantastic job. Yeah.
And I know, obviously, you started with WBRZ down in Louisiana. What got you from there to Channel 2 in the early 90s?
Oh, my gosh. So BRZ was the local TV station in Baton Rouge, and where I got out of college. I was down there. I had a great opportunity to start with them. And then while I was down there, I was a political reporter. And I covered the David Duke Edwin Edwards runoff.
Oh, yes.
And so I'm covering that in 90, and Edwards wins, and he comes into the newsroom early in the morning one day to do something for one of the networks, and used to have to actually come to the TV station to do that. And so he came through, and Governor Edwards, and I had my hair in curlers, and I was like the low man on the totem pole on a Sunday morning. He's probably doing Meet the Press or something. Sunday morning, and I got my hair in curlers because I'm the weekend person. And I open the door, and he comes through, and he says to me, "Hey, young lady, you did that story about the Crowley Rice Festival, didn't you?" And I said, he'd been a parade, and I said, "Yes, sir, I did." And he said, "I don't believe you spoke too kindly about me." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. I felt it was fair, balanced, and accurate." I use that term a lot. And he said, "Well, I do believe you didn't speak too kindly of my opponent either." And so we had this brief conversation. He goes and does his stuff. As he's leaving, I'm all dolled up. I was a kid. I'm all dolled up doing my news cut-ins. And he said, "Do you want to come work for me?" And I said, "I'm very flattered, thank you, sir. But I'm new at this, and I love this business." And he said, "What are you making?" And I told him. And he said, "I will double it." And I said, "I'll see you in the morning." So I went to work for Governor Edwards in his press secretary group. I was just low man. I did research in the education team. But I lasted 4 months. and I did not like it, and I couldn't wait to get back into television.
Right.
I did not want to be on the side answering the questions. I wanted to be on the side asking the questions. So I sent out resumes all up and down the East Coast. I wanted to just go live near the beach somewhere. And I interviewed in Charleston, and they flew me here. They put me up at the Lodge Alley Inn.
Oh.
I remember it vividly. And I interviewed with Mac Thompson back there. Remember Mac?
I remember Mac.
I interviewed with Mac, and he offered me the job as reporter. And I loaded up my Jeep and threw all my stuff in a U-Haul and headed here. All by myself. Didn't know a single soul in South Carolina.
And now you know, you worked with some of the best back then.
I did.
I don't know if she's married now. Amy Newberry.
Yeah.
Nancy O'Dell now.
Right, Nancy O'Dell.
Hart Jacobs. I mean, so many people.
And we stay connected. Amy Robach.
Right.
Remember, Amy was my intern, and then she was this young reporter.
Yes.
I threw her bachelorette party.
Right.
Maria Sloggy and Natalie Bagwell.
Right. Erica Bryant
Fields. Erica and I stayed close for a lot of years. We still are.
Right.
It's really a fabulous group of people, and to think that some of them have had huge careers,
right,
and that we all started here as a bunch of kids together, you know.
But I mean, Bill Evans and Mac Thompson developed a knack of talent.
They did.
That you don't see anymore.
Somehow they tapped into finding people who had this drive and this commitment, and I didn't want to like Nancy O'Dell when I first started, because she was tall and beautiful in Miss South Carolina, and I was short and dark and trying to figure out what was going on. But she was just charming and kind and hardworking, and we became friends. And it was so obvious that she was just this really fantastic human. And then Amy Robach comes in, and she's fantastic. And Eric and I. We co-anchored the first 2 female show in Charleston.
That's right, first news.
Yeah, we never had 2 women before. That was big.
Yeah, what was that emotionally for you?
Yeah. Oh, we were all girl powered out on it. Yeah, we really were excited back then to be able to do that for the first time, and bring some diversity and have 2 women, and add a 5 o'clock show.
Right.
That was a big, exciting time in the industry.
And then obviously Channel 5 followed with Carolyn Murray and Dean Crosby.
Yeah, and they did theirs. Now Carolyn's over in my old seat. She's fantastic, and we keep up with each other.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And her daughter, all our kids are grown and off to college.
Exactly right. Yeah. My God. So, if you could publish another book, I know we can't all predict the future, but what would be the title about your future?
Oh my goodness. A book about me, you mean, or just the next book?
Yes, ma'am.
Either one.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think something about this matters or make a difference. I truly think we all have something to share. Everyone you meet has a story to tell.
Sure.
I've loved that as I've gone through life, learning people's stories, and I do believe that each of us has the opportunity to make a difference. So something along those lines. Lots of stories about what people are doing and what they can do.
Sure. That's amazing.
It would be neat.
It would indeed.
Be a big book.
Oh, yes. I'll be right here to action.
Okay. I'll give you your own chapter.
Thank you. Well, the Honorable Nina Sossamon, now Nina Sossamon Poe, thank you for your time and welcome to Quintin's Full Sets.
Thank you so much for having me, Quintin. This has been so fun.
Fun, sitting next to a legend.
Oh, you're a legend.
No.
It's you're everybody's bucket list now. You're not anybody until you've been on Quintin's Full Sets. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Love you.
Love you. Same to you.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.